So welcome to Jonathan Masters' Freedom School. I'm going to talk about the 10 alternatives to the current education, current American, Prussian-Industrial, Totalitarian, Fascist education that we are currently having here. It's going to be, this is the ideas. These are going to be these 10 alternative forms of education is going to be the spirit for how I would construct my own school. And the name of the school is the Postmodern School, or the Postmodern University for Revolutionaries, okay? So these are the 10 alternative ideas for the traditional, sort of hierarchical, authoritarian, autocratic dictatorships that we see in the American education system. These 10 ideas are alternative forms, but I'm going to take the best ideas from each one of them, and I'm going to put them into my postmodern university for revolutionaries. So my postmodern university for revolutionaries, this is it, okay? This is the 10 ideas, okay? First, actually, I wanted to say a few jokes. Here's a truly tasteless calendar. This is from my granny, Beulah Rupert, who had died in 1996. And she used to, I liked actually being with her because she would tell us these, dirty jokes, and she'd also tell them really badly too. So it was really adorable and cute, and it was cool that you would have somebody, an adult in your life, that was actually telling you some of these things. So the July 18th joke is, how does a wasp know when his wife is ready to make love? So how does a wasp know when a wife is ready to make love, right? So it's a man, a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. How does he know? Well, she's waiting in bed with the plastic gloves on, right? So that's sort of, there's another joke about a wasp. How do you know when a wasp, a female wasp has an orgasm? They don't have any orgasms, because white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, they were the ones that eventually colonized America, killed all the Indians, enslaved all the people. They're so racist that they hated the Germans and the Irish and the Italians. And even though Blanche Knott's truly tasteless jokes, there is some racist jokes in it, he also points out the Italians and the Irish. And so they're sort of making fun of the homeland, where every white American has roots, is in Europe. But now we're in our own states, and each state has their own flavor and their own culture, right? So I'm impressed. This is actually the only time I ever heard the word wasp was through Blanche Knott's. He has one joke about how can you tell when a woman is half Irish and half Italian? She smashes potatoes with her feet, right? Which I guess that's Irish. They have potatoes, right? They love potatoes in Ireland. And then there's the Italians. I guess they have sticky feet or something, and they do things backwards. I don't know, but that's it points to some assumptions that you have about the Irish and the Italians. So how can you tell a female wasp? Her favorite food is cheese and crackers, right? She's boring and bland. She just like cheese and crackers, or maybe she's a cracker, right? So she just like crackers. Why was the gynecologist unemployed? He couldn't find any openings. How can women stop the population explosion? By using their heads. How can you tell when you're in a rough neighborhood? The gun shops have back-to-school sales. So, anyways, that was just sort of to get your attention, right? To get your attention. Also, to get your attention, we'll use some rhetoric. So, brace yourself, okay? So, these are the 10 alternatives to the Prussian, American, industrial, totalitarian, fascist, autocratic dictatorship, anti-democratic education. So to create good leaders, a good leader creates more good leaders. A good leader doesn't create a bunch of followers. A good leader creates other leaders, especially respective in their own fields. If I'm teaching medicine, then I want my students to be the best brain surgeon, the best ear doctor, the best foot doctor, the best whatever type of doctor there is, and within their own field, they can lead in their own field. And they can lead by, knowing more knowledge and advancing their own understanding of things farther than anybody else. Right now, you have the way our system is set up is you have a bunch of people who conforms into this obedient culture, right? Just do as the master tells you and just go on. Well, that's how our system now creates good followers, but not good leaders. And so that's what a good leader, they don't create good followers. They don't create a bunch of obedient Uncle Tom house niggers, a bunch of kissed-ass, brown-nosing, bitch-ass nigger slaves, which is what Jerry Farber had wrote so eloquently about in his pamphlet in 1969, The Student as Nigger. So we want more leaders, not followers. Now, y'all might get mad at me about that rhetoric, But the Jerry Farber was a professor, and in 1969 he wrote The Student as Nigger, and he says when you start thinking the students as niggers, everything makes sense. Back in the days of slavery, the white masses, just a family of 5 could control a whole plantation of, 30 plus, African slaves. Now we have an American education system, which we have one autocratic dictator, totalitarian fascist, totalitarian because they control your mind, right? Prussian because this was adopted from the German education system. Prussian, 1806. Napoleon had conquered the Prussians with volunteers who were very obedient, right? So Napoleon had obedient soldiers, whereas the Prussians had all these people that thought with their own mind, and so instead of fighting in the battlefield, they ran away, right? They had enough sense that they actually wanted to live, so they didn't want to die. Well, they didn't like that. They wanted to create an entire system. So that's the Prussian model, industrial model, because the school system is regulated with the bells and the whistles and the hour here and the hour here and the hour break, just like a factory is. But you're creating students who are going to be good in the factories, but there's no factory jobs in America. Most of them have, they're outsourcing all these jobs, so there's no, they're creating skills for jobs that don't even exist. And so that's the industrial model. Totalitarian because they influence your mind. They'll force you to sit and listen to their boring lectures and to get into your head. Fascism because at the end of the day, when they call the ISAP or the security people, they're going to use violence in order to pull your student out of class. And that's the definition of fascism, is do as I say or else there will be violence. So totalitarian, fascist, autocratic, rule by one, dictator, the rule by one again, anti-democratic, no democracy, no solidarity, no voting on anything. That's the current education system that we have now. So I say bitch ass and I say nigger because I'm pointing out the hierarchy. And it's rhetoric, and go ahead and get mad at me if you want to, but I'm just pointing out the hierarchy and the oppression. There's the oppressors, there's the oppressed, and then there's everybody else who wants to be equal. William Glasser, he's an educational theorist, and he says that the will to power is what ruins everybody's relationships. It is natural for humans to have a will to power, to try to get others to do as they want them to do, but nobody wants to be someone else's slave, so you have to check that. Even though it's a natural thing inside humans to put power on others, that, people don't respect compliance and submission. If anything, that only justifies their coercive and crappy ways. So it's like, well, I was crappy to them and I got them to do their work, so I'll just keep on being crappy because that's how you do it. Well, no, true education was you actually love the child, embrace them, and you care about the whole person. You try to develop them in that respects. Okay? So I'm creating the Postmodern University for Revolutionaries. Revolutionary, if you're not a revolutionary, then you're trying to make a slave out of me. Well, revolutionary is a person who wants to change things, not necessarily through violent overthrow, but through peaceful elections. Aristotle says a revolution happens with, coup d'etat, with elections, when you get new leadership in there, right? When you get different leaders in the positions of power, there is a type of revolution because things are going to change, and then change in the Constitution. So if you can rewrite the Constitution, change the leadership, or have a violent overthrow, that's the revolution. Now, in America, they have way too much military, so we can't, I don't even advocate any type of violent revolution whatsoever. It'd be a bloodbath and you would totally lose. So that way it won't work. So the only other options we have is to change the Constitution and to change the leadership. And so this is for people, this is for revolutionaries. So revolutionary also in the sense that there's no hierarchy. There's no person over somebody else. And how does equality look like? Well, there's one of two ways equality looks like. Either I do a little bit for you, you do a little bit for me, and we help each other out through this world, or I'm wildly free, you're wildly free, and then just free associations, we make this thing work. So that's the definition of equality and all the terms that I'm using, and I'm pointing out the hierarchy. So nobody wants, and bitch, like nobody wants to be a bitch. You call a man a bitch, that's emasculating for him, right? Takes away his manhood. A woman doesn't want to be called a bitch. Nobody wants to be called these names at all. But since we have a bunch of kiss-ass, brown-nosing people, since our system has normalized totalitarian fascism through the Prussian-Industrial model of education, then anybody who speaks out or has an independent thought is looked at as like, oh my God, that person is different than everybody else. No, that person isn't different. That person actually is doing exactly what is right. And there's Abramovic, somebody, she did the Rhythm Zero experiment where she just lied on the table and said, had all these items in front of her and said let anybody do whatever they want to do, and so they did anything. They almost killed her, they almost murdered her, and somebody even cut her neck and drunk her blood and some other things. And so it shows if you don't fight back, then the people, their sickness, their sadistic will to power will make them turn into just torturous monsters. You also got the Holocaust, you got genocide, war, and slavery. The worst atrocities throughout human history is because of blind obedience to arbitrary authority. That's what our American education system is teaching, is blind obedience to arbitrary authority. Just do as you're told. Who cares if that person is actually, your boss, or is even making sense? If that person is giving orders, then clearly that person is right. My natural reaction to somebody saying even something small, but usually, that's a teacher tactic too, to start out with something small, and if you can get the kid to comply with small things, and eventually you can get the big projects for them to comply with it too. But that's my natural reaction to anybody saying, hey, go do this thing, kiss my ass. If you kiss my ass, I'll do it, you do what I want, then I'll do what you want, but you're a hypocritical asshole. You just want me to comply with your orders, but you actually don't want anybody to comply with what you're saying. So it's ridiculous, it's total bullshit. And it's the American education system, all the way from Head Start to graduate school, teacher training schools, that's all they teach. They don't teach you how to be a teacher, they don't teach you how to, to be experts in your field. At no point did I learn about social studies at the normal school at Spalding University. The only thing they wanted to teach was compliance and obedience, and they wanted to teach compliance and obedience by making me a sit-down, shut-up student. Well, that didn't help me become a teacher. It very much, in fact, basically you had to turn off your humanity, right? Just do as you're told and go along with what the program is. So carrying on. Okay, so the 10 alternatives to education, right? So our current American education system is crap. Look at Kentucky. We got #1 for cancer, #1 for air pollution. There's lots of insane, barbaric behavior. We got 5-year-olds shoot 2-year-olds. We got police brutality. We're the #1 for fastest growing prisons. So lots of craziness that's happened, especially in Kentucky. It's one of the worst states in the 50 states when it comes to healthcare, education, and wealth. Also, child abuse and toxic pollution, cancer. We're dying of all sorts of cancer, brain, lung. Just going down the line, there's like so many things. 2 out of 5 Kentucky adults can't even read. And so why is our society failing? Well, our society is failing because the education system is failing. And the education system is failing because people are just doing as they were told, right? They go to school, and then they learn some knowledge, and they just force it down your throat as if that knowledge will help you. That knowledge only helps the teachers because they're going to become teachers. If you're not going to become a teacher, then that knowledge won't help you whatsoever. They're just passing knowledge that they had received, passing on down to others just because. And that's ridiculous. That is not a good enough a reason for anything. We should always question institutions and authority, and if people don't do, if it doesn't hold up to questions, if the authority figures don't have any legitimacy or don't have any reasons for what they're doing, then they need to be dismantled. Why are you doing this? Just because? No, that's not a good enough answer. That's a horrible reasoning, okay? So I'm going to go through these real fast again, because actually I got another introduction just about Jean-Jacques Rousseau and Francisco Ferrer y Guardia, which is a Spanish anarchist, and then Jean-Jacques Rousseau was an Enlightenment thinker. So let's see, we got black schools, we got Waldorf, we got Reggio Emilia, Montessori education, Summerhill, Sudbury, homeschooling, Khan's Academy, Sugata Mitra, School in a Cloud, anarchist schools, and vocational schools, and St. John's College. So those are the 10 alternatives, and from these 10 alternatives, which all these have good things, good qualities to them, even though each one of these models can learn from the other models. So in my school for the postmodern, the Postmodern University for Revolutionaries, we're going to take the best qualities from all 10 of these, and we're going to make our own school. We're going to make the best idealistic school that we've ever seen and we've ever had, that all society's ever seen. Okay. So I'm going to get into those 10 schools, because the black schools, Waldorf, Reggio Emilia, like I said, these are our alternative educations, but they're not the it's not the end goal. Okay, so I want to talk about Jean-Jacques Rousseau and Francisco Ferrer y Guardia, and I want to talk about these gentlemen because they wrote about how education should be different, and then they were victimized, and they had to be, they were exiled, or they were even murdered. Okay, so just because you want to change society, change how things were, you were murdered. Like, that's incredible. It's absolutely ridiculous. That one bald lady, what was her name? She ripped up the picture of the Pope and then got all this, flack for her protest, when she was right. She was against child abuse, and when she had spoke out against child abuse, the Catholic Church was very much a part of that. The Catholic Church has been killing people for the last 500–600 years in Europe. They're probably the most bloodiest oppressors in Europe for about like 1,000 years. I mean, the Holy Roman Empire was the Catholic Church, Spanish Inquisition, that's where Christopher Columbus came out of. That's the Catholic Church, the Crusades. Hitler, Mussolini, the Russian czars, these are all Catholics, okay? And so the Catholic Church, while today the Pope is being spiritual and nice and friendly because he should be a good spiritual leader, sort of like the Dalai Lama, just pointing out what's good and what's wrong, because that's the only authority that they have is the moral authority. That's what they should be doing, but they're doing that because they have to, because they have a long list of, I mean, even Galileo, you know, I don't know if they put Galileo to death or not, but they definitely treated him bad. And did they condemn him to death? I'm not for sure if they condemned him to death or not. So, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, who is this man? So you have all these Enlightenment thinkers, and now I'm going to carry on, actually. Okay, so I'm going to finish Jean-Jacques Rousseau, and then I'm going to finish Francisco Ferrer, and then I'm going to go through the other ones. So go to my next videos if you just want to see my analysis of the 10 alternative educations, but I'm going to do this. This is the introduction, okay? So Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Jean-Jacques Rousseau is an absolute genius, okay? God, I cannot believe I have not looked at Jean-Jacques Rousseau until recent. And I got several of his books. He wrote Social Contracts, Emilia, and several other things. So Jean-Jacques Rousseau, his basic tenet of philosophy is that man is born free, but everywhere in society he is in chains. So our natural state of human nature is to be free and to do as we want to do, but not to harm others. But civilization and society ends up corrupting the natural goodness of original man. So that's his statement that sort of, you know, defines his entire thinking. Man is born free, but everywhere he is in chains. So Jean-Jacques Rousseau was also the spirit and the soul of the French Revolution. He had died in 1778. His dates are 1712 to 1778. Rousseau died 2 years after the Declaration of Independence was written. So he got to see America declare independence, and they wanted change, but he died 1 year before the French Revolution had happened. So he died before the French Revolution happened, but they said that he was the heart and spirit of the thing. And a lot of the people who fought in the Revolution, if you were a radical, you loved them, and if you were, you know, a conservative and you just wanted to maintain the hierarchical monarchy sort of the oppressive state, then you hated him, right? Oh, damn that Rousseau. So let's see. He died 1 year before the French Revolution happened. That was 1789 to 1799. Our American Revolution was 1776 and 1783, and then you have the Haitian Revolution, which was 1791, which was 3 years before the Haitian Revolution. Those are the three main revolutions. They should be studied together because they are all revolutions, and they have very many lasting consequences for today. The Haitian Revolution was the only true revolution. The French Revolution eventually lost, you know, because Napoleon came by and he turned it into a tyrant. And supposedly he spread those French Revolution ideals everywhere because the French had the right idea to treat people the way they should be treated, but they used those good ideas to conquer and plunder a people. Napoleon, when it came to the Haitian people, he actually wanted to put pressure or wanted to colonize to re-enslave the Haitian people because he didn't want black folks anywhere in the world, no Africans anywhere, to think that they could run their own republic. The Haitian Revolution was more of a revolution, I say, because it was the slaves overthrow their masters. So the slaves themselves got the freedom for themselves. They kicked out the genocidal, bloody French dictators, right? They fought the Spanish, they fought the French, they fought the Americans have actually coup d'etat, you know, Haiti in the last 20 years. So we're still messing with Haiti. You know, they wouldn't be the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere if people would just, you know, would stop messing with them and let them do their own thing. They have lots of resources, lots of creativity, lots of art and music. So unfortunately, I blame the general society for actually all the poverty that they have. So, France and America. Also, yeah, France supported the United States during their revolution, and if France hadn't put their money behind the colonists against the English, then we would have lost, okay? America wouldn't be the country that we are today because of France. France absolutely helped us, and it helped fight against the tyranny of King George III. Now, it was a proxy war, so England and France are fighting this battle, and they're saying, well, since the colonies out here are fighting, I'm going to give weapons and men to the colonists to fight against, because your enemy's enemy is your friend. So because of the French, our revolution was successful, but when the French had a revolution, George Washington declared his neutrality. The United States declared neutrality when they didn't have to declare anything, but they declared the neutrality when France and England went to war during the French Revolution. And so Alexander Hamilton said to declare neutrality, but Thomas Jefferson says, no, we should be supporting the French Revolutionaries. Or we shouldn't even, you know, officially announce our neutrality. Thomas Jefferson would resign his position as Secretary of State after Washington declared officially that the United States would be neutral. The Neutrality Declaration turned out to be a poor decision, since Great Britain would come back to America and burn down the White House in the War of 1812 when England tried to get her colonies back. So because we didn't take a stand, we didn't take the right stand with the Haitian Revolution, we didn't take the right stand with the French Revolution, these things are coming back to haunt us today. Americans only believe that they should be free and they should have a revolution, but anybody else that's having revolutions, we don't support. And actually today, when it comes to like Latin American countries and countries all over the world, we got 900 military bases in 150 countries. We support dictatorships. We would rather go with the devil that we know than to put it to democracy and find out it's a devil that we don't know. So we would rather support these heinous dictatorships that use violent repression against their own people. If Gaddafi was our friend, then we would have supported Gaddafi and his massacre of all his people, because the nation-state theory says that the state has a monopoly on violence, and therefore they can do whatever it takes in order to smash any rebellion. George Washington, he smashed the Whiskey Rebellion. You had Shays' Rebellion. You had, the Native Americans and the slaves. So basically the state was the most powerful thing, and anybody else that questioned that state, if they tried to use violence, they were smashed. So again, that's why I say with the revolution, having a violent revolution just wouldn't work. So you don't even want to consider it, because it would be an absolute bloodbath. They have all the military. They got the police. They got the army. The FBI, CIA. They have Air Force. They have Marines. They have every gun out there. So no, that would definitely end in a loss for anybody that tried to take power by force. Especially since we got mechanisms, seemingly we got mechanisms where you can peacefully get power through elections, through campaigning. And you also could have a constitutional convention, which Kentucky desperately needs, because our Constitution has been gutted out, and it's totally been rewritten so many times that the original meaning or original words to the Constitution, most of it's been held to be null and void. So Jean-Jacques Rousseau and Francisco Ferrer y Guardia, I'm actually going to come up back to them because I want to take a break here, but Francisco Ferrer y Guardia was a Spanish anarchist who had established the modern school, and he wanted to establish the modern school to actually be for freedom and for people to treat each other the way they should be treated. And because he established this school, he was eventually murdered by the Catholic Church. Which big surprise there. And Jean-Jacques Rousseau, he was treated as an outcast as soon as he wrote the social contract in Emilia. And Emilia is about protecting man's natural goodness, right? Human nature is that we are born good, so therefore society is going to corrupt us. So the way you educate a child to make sure they're not being corrupted is you make your child have a strong will, a super individualist attitude. So they are strong, they know who they are, they know what they believe. When they see injustice, they put a stop to it. They're not being manipulated and exploited by anybody else. Their will trump some oppressor's will. So they're not going and looking to control and manipulate others, but if somebody tries to control and manipulate them, then the child would be so strong that they wouldn't do it. So Jean-Jacques Rousseau believes if you make the child strong, they will be good. Okay? So more about Jean-Jacques Rousseau and Francisco Ferrer y Guardia, and the 10 alternatives to education that I come up with, a short description for each one of the things that I come up with, and why I believe each one of them has qualities that the postmodern university for revolutionaries could use. Okay.